Coming up on podcast 1065, we have all the reaction to Tesla's Q1 21 earnings call, and we work out what's good, what's bad, and what's downright ugly. Stick around, I've got the details. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are listening or watching around the world. Welcome to EV News Daily for Tuesday, 27th of April. My name is Martin Lee, and I go through every EV story, so you don't have to. Normally a mix of news, 20 minutes of EV news every day, but occasionally we do these single topic podcasts, and an earnings call from Tesla is always one of them, because whilst they are not the entire EV industry, arguably the most important at the moment, so it's always worth having a look at what's happened in the shareholder letter and what Elon Musk said on the call as well. There's always gems, so stick around. We'll talk about deliveries of the new Model S and X. He's quiet on the Semi, and we think we know why. Also, what's the deal with Tesla and Bitcoin and full self-driving subscription? Well, stay tuned, and we'll get to all of those on the podcast today. But first of all, it's worth having a look at what some of the reaction was to the earnings call. Well, we have a look at the article from Fool.com, which was a nice summary, a look at Tesla's operating metrics and financials, showing a growth stock in its purest form, in addition to its skyrocketing vehicle deliveries and revenue. They say vehicle production, megawatts of solar deployments, and megawatt hours of energy storage, all soaring between 71 and 163% year over year, respectively, in Q1, says Fool.com. And it's really interesting, isn't it, how this time last year we were just going into COVID. China had their shutdown already, but you try and cast your mind back to Q1 last year. Man, interesting times on a world stage, really, when you think about it. Okay, let's continue having a look at what they had to say, which was, if you exclude the $300 million of stock-based compensation awarded to Elon Musk during the quarter, that's for achieving certain market cap goals and operational milestones, Tesla would have been profitable, even without regulatory credits. And that's a key thing that we'll talk about on the podcast today, because it's an accusation that gets thrown at Tesla, I would say, quite a lot, and maybe fairly and actually pretty unfairly at times as well. Tesla noted that its Model Y production rate at Shanghai and California is improving. On a similar note, they said construction of Berlin and Texas are on track for production and deliveries late this year, but that's as specific as we got on the time frame. So overall, a really good result for Tesla in Q1. We'll come on to those regulatory credits in just a few seconds. They generated $10.4 billion worth of sales in the first quarter, $438 million of profit. And that's basically double the revenue that it had this time last year, when Tesla had to shut down China and cope with coronavirus like the rest of the world, obviously. It's also the most profit that Tesla's ever made in a quarter, says The Verge. If you want to have a look at what they said, I'll pop a link to this in the show notes along with all the articles. This is the 7th quarter in a row that Tesla was profitable. The company once again buoyed by selling emissions credits to other automakers. Tesla said they sold a record $518 million worth of credits. It would have finished the quarter in the red without them, says The Verge. But look, the deal with these regulatory credits, Tesla is making only EVs. They have an excess of credits. There's nothing stopping the other car makers making EVs. There's lots of reasons over the last few years that they've been lobbying to slow down EVs or for better emissions rules, because they didn't get their acting gear in time. So is it Tesla's fault that they can sell these? Absolutely not. Does it mean that they wouldn't be profitable without selling them? Well, that is the other case that I see both sides arguing online. The arguing gets tiresome, by the way, but I see both sides going at it, from people saying, well, without selling these, you wouldn't have made a profit at Tesla, and therefore it's not a real business. But they were only 20-something million in the red. Still a lot of money, but not when your turnover's 10 billion in a quarter. And so if you know these are coming in, you build your business around it. You do things like the stock-based compensation. In other words, Mr. Musk's paycheck, not that he gets paid, of course, is based on all those things that the amount of R&D that you do, the capital investment, all those things are worked out knowing how much money you can bring in from various revenue streams, and credits are one of them. So I think it's a fair point, but nobody is stopping the others from making EVs, if that makes sense. All right. Let's continue. Model S, big news. Tesla wrote in its Q1 report, Model S is coming very shortly. Production of both the Model S and X was stopped for a couple of months. None at all. Zero in Q1 over the last 3 months because of the big refresh. The company was expecting to get them delivered by February. Challenges affected the launch, but from the brief info that we had from Tesla, we think that they're going to be starting very soon, according to Inside EVs. Let's have a look at what they had to say and analyse their take on the matter. The Model S and X launch day was not explained in detail because there was going to be, if you remember, on the last call, Elon Musk talked about it, went, within a week or so, I'm paraphrasing here because I forget, we'll do a whole day about S and X. Never happened. No reference to it. What went on there? It seems the upgrade was more challenging than expected, at least partially related to the ongoing global supply shortage, and the Model S and Model X, according to Elon Musk, are cheaper to produce. That would be a major boost to margins, say Inside EVs, as the prices of the top S and X are higher than before. So that's a really good point as well, actually, when you think about it. Tesla did really well in Q1 without selling the cars that have a higher average selling price. So do they need the S and the X to survive? Absolutely not. Could they, when you think about it, get rid of the S and the X? Probably. I think they should keep them because it spells sexy, but also because they're premium cars, they are aspirational cars. It gives them a weapon with which to fight the likes of Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Lucid, etc. at the top end of the market. But do they need those cars as a business? Absolutely not. 100% they don't. If you were being ruthless, you'd get rid of them nostalgically, and for many other reasons, I think they should keep them. But it's one of those situations with the S and the X where you could easily survive without them, and they did in Q1. So we didn't get any reason why they're not around. Cynics would say that there was an earnings call 3 months ago that said S and X, or S particularly, is being delivered shortly. Fast forward 3 months, we have another earnings call that says S is being delivered shortly. Will we wait 3 more months and hear exactly the same thing again? I don't think so. But anyway, just providing the alternate opinion for you, because we like to do that on this podcast, which is all about balance and trying to see things from all sides and all parts of the world as well. It's one of the reasons people get in contact and say, hey, we like that it's not, purely pro-Tesla, that you criticize them, where it's, I always say I don't hold stock. I don't have any interest in them going up or down. It's all a big game to me. However, my interest in Tesla doing well is it means the EV industry does well. So I really want to see Tesla succeed because they make great cars and they force others to make great cars as well. But what about trucks? Well, the company provided no updates on the long-running saga of the Tesla semi-truck and the tractor, saying it's in the background, but they need help from the battery suppliers, from their own suppliers, making their own advanced 4680 cells as well with a better energy density, which they will need for the semi-truck. Full production of the advanced cells is about 12 to 18 months away, which is further away than I thought, actually. I thought at the end of this year they were going to be doing a higher level of production, but that is definitely one to look into and clarify, actually. According to the website Freight Waves, the Austin Gigafactory will produce the semi. Hundreds of orders for the truck, which we first saw in 2017, are now in, but the date keeps slipping. Media reports suggesting they could build a small number of the trucks in their Nevada, Sparks, Nevada, original Gigafactory 1, as we used to call it, for the likes of Pepsi and their Frito-Lay brand, which wants to use them. Elon Musk said, and we do have a quote from him, Elon said, "This is not being done to the exclusion of suppliers," when talking about how they need to ramp up battery making on their own, and also in conjunction with suppliers, he says, and I quote, "We have good relationships with CATL, Panasonic and LG, and if you can supply us with as much as you possibly can, provided the price is affordable, we'll buy everything that you can make." So once again, the key there being battery supply constrained. It's a really big deal. There's so much demand for so much EVs and storage as well, but That's the key, and that's what they're trying to fix. Next, we'll talk about how Tesla sold some of its Bitcoin Cash. Yahoo Finance talking about this story with Elon Musk, the master of coin. No, that's not what he is. It's Zach Kirkhorn, they call that. Tesla's CFO. Let's just call him the CFO rather than his nickname. The sale of Bitcoin trimmed their position by 10%, Zach Kirkhorn said in the earnings call, saying that the EV company purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin back in February, and on the call saying that Tesla invested in Bitcoin to earn a yield on its excess cash in a low interest rate environment, while the company continues to deal with a global supply chain crunch like semiconductor shortage and shipping port capacity. He said the Bitcoin market is a liquid market with an optimistic future. I see lots of comments online from people saying, well, the share price is down from its high because people don't like that Tesla is a company that is gambling with Bitcoin. I don't know if any of that is true, but you can't argue they made, anywhere between 8 and 10% return on their Bitcoin investment in a couple of months. Yeah, that's not bad if you can do that. Okay, let's move on. A Tesla Model 3 becomes the best-selling premium sedan in the world, was the headline. I'm not sure I agree with this. Let's have a look at that chart. If you're watching the YouTube version, you'll see it on screen. From the shareholder letter, about 3.5 years into production, and even without a European factory, Model 3 was the best-selling premium sedan in the world, outselling long-time industry leaders like the 3 Class and the E-Class. 3 Series in the E-Class, I guess that would be, demonstrating, they say, that an electric vehicle can be a category leader and outsell gas-powered counterparts. And if we just take a look at the provided graph, they've put the Model 3 against the 3 Series, the E-Class, bit weird, should be the C-Class, the Audi Q5 and the Audi A6. There's other cars that they could put on there. Audi A4, where's that? Used to be on the graph. You can argue that the Audi A3 in some specs is a premium car. So there's the Audi Q cars as well. There's more that could go on there. So it's a bit, I don't know the Audi numbers. They could all be further down than that. So it's all kind of moo juice, really. But what's interesting, although there's the C-Class missing and the Audi A4, is they have put a scale on it. And from that scale, you can see the Model 3 in Q1 did about 120,000. Now, that's interesting because much like Apple do with their various devices and things, they don't split out anymore. You don't get the numbers. They lump S and X together and 3 and Y together. And so we can see that the 3 was about 120,000, so on a total of 180k must mean that the Model Y is 60k. Model Y 60,000, Model 3 120,000 for the quarter. That's more of a disparity than I thought, to be honest with you. I thought that they were closing the gap now that China were producing cars. We do get the China numbers, so we can kind of extrapolate from that, but yeah, maybe I'm need to have a think about that again. I thought that the gap between them was closer, but easily Model 3 doing so much better than the Model Y. But Berlin will start, and that will make the Model Y to begin with. So maybe that'll close the gap. Okay, let's move on. Up against the time today. Zach Kirkhorn said, confirming during Tesla's Q1 earnings call on Monday, that they are waiting on a couple of internal technical issues, but full self-driving should be launched soon, and the subscription model will offer a great deal of recurring revenue potential for the company, he says. According to the roadshow by CNET website, we don't know what Tesla would charge on a monthly basis, they say, but it would be a substantial chunk of the average person's payment. Yeah, I would agree with that, because they can't price it at $100 a month, because for just over $1,000 a year, why would you spend the 10 grand up front? But equally, they can't price it at $500 a month, because I'll drive myself, thanks. So there's a sweet spot somewhere. I'm sure they'll tweak it. They tweak their prices all the time. So what do you think that pricing could be? I'd always love to hear from you, actually. You can email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com, if you listen to this show on your podcast platforms or watch it on YouTube now. And I would love to hear from you with what you think the pricing could be. All right, stick around. Coming up on the podcast, we are talking about storage with Powerwall, and also some of the funniest and most obscure quotes that Elon Musk said on the earnings call. Stay tuned for that. Now, let's talk about how he said it was insanely difficult for Tesla. Elon Musk telling investors during the quarterly earnings call that they've been forced to reckon with supply chain issues. Insane difficulties in the last quarter, the most difficult supply chain challenges we've experienced. He says, according to Business Insider, who writes that back in February they halted production of Model 3 because of backlogs at ports and snowstorms. And the global semiconductor shortage has wreaked havoc on tech and automotive companies. Yeah, it's super interesting how they're not immune to this. They seem to have suffered a little bit less than others, but they did say some other stuff about how they innovated with a semiconductor shortage issue. And let's move on and talk about Elon Musk's best quotes, according to Business Insider, who pulled these together, which is kind of funny. He says, and I quote, "More likely than not, Model Y will be the best-selling car or truck of any kind in the world in 2022. End quote. Okay, so this time next year, they'll be in 2022, and it will be on the way to becoming the best-selling car or truck in the world. Well, the Ford F-150 truck alone will do 1 million. Pretty much guaranteed, between 900,000 and 1 million. So, he's setting the sights high. Next, he said, long-term, people will think of Tesla as much as an AI robotics company as a car company. That just seems like pure Elon. That's the showmanship that gets the super Tesla fans moist in all the right areas. They lap that stuff up. Will they be a robotics company as much as a car company? I don't know. It doesn't matter. He doesn't have to prove it, does he? It's the kind of stuff that he says that just gets them really excited. It's the sort of the showman side, the P.T. Barnum side of Elon that we love him for. On solar and storage, he said, and I quote, "Why don't we do it? The energy basis of the Earth is gigantic, super mega insanely gigantic." Okay. So you can't just go and do a zillion terawatts overnight. You've got to build the production capacity for the cells. The solar, you've got to put it into vehicles, into storage packs, and you've got to put into solar panels and solar glass roofs and deploy it all. And it's a really good point because here he talks to the mission of Tesla, which gets so many people fired up. And it's a smart thing in terms of marketing the company and also the success of the company, always bringing it back to the mission. He doesn't need to be talking about how the whole Earth can be powered from solar, but it's irrelevant on an earnings call. But really smart to drop these things in. It, again, reminds people of the mission of the company, and it's one of the reasons they're so successful. He talks about prototypes, and I quote, "Prototypes are trivial. They're child's play. Production at a large scale with higher liability and low cost is insanely difficult. Myself and many others at Tesla had to basically have several aneurysms to get this done." Insanely difficult was the buzzword recently. Next, the quote from him, he says, "We are talking millions of cars, a massive global supply chain, 50 countries, dozens of regulatory regimes. Solving constraints and logistical problems makes World War II look trivial. I'm not kidding." No, because nobody needs a kid about a world war, is there? Anyway, complaining about how hard life is. But they're doing a cracking job. Tons of stuff in the call. If you want to go and you can listen to the whole thing, it's online at ir.tesla.com. But hopefully that's a good little summary for you, like we like to do on this podcast, the day after looking at some of the key reaction. And now what do you think? Let me know in the comments of YouTube, or you can email hello@evnewsdaily.com. Same address. For question of the week, we'll read out yours on Sunday's podcast. What's the most effective consumer education regarding EVs? What's the most effective consumer education regarding EVs? I'd like to know. It's a tough one, but we need to do it. This podcast plays a teeny tiny part in that, and I'd like to know other ways. So hello@evnewsdaily.com, my address. Thank you very much to everyone on Patreon who supports me. It's how we fund the show. Couldn't do it without you. You can have a look on there, patreon.com/evnewsdaily. Our premium partners, Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, NationalCarCharging.com and AlohaCharge.com, Derek O'Reilly and his EV Review Ireland YouTube channel, Richard at rsev.co.uk for buying and selling EVs in the UK, and emobilitynorway.com. Have a good one, see you tomorrow, and remember there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.